Yeah, he's an ass. First time I met him, he goes, "How do you know he was my dad?"
Because he worked back then.
Oh, well.
Good morning, folks.
Good
Good
morning. How are
morning.
you?
Morning.
Good
Hey, Lindsay,
morning.
I have a question for you. We're going to be approving minutes from 3 different meetings. Do you want those approved in a big ball, or should we approve them one meeting at a time?
I would do a meeting at a time just in case anyone has any edits, just to make it
Okay,
cleaner.
sounds good. Thank you.
I remember going, I can't slough this one off.
All right, it's 10 o'clock. So let's call this meeting to order. Let's see where we are. Are we at quorum?
Not yet. We have 7. We need quite a bit more.
Okay, well then we'll give it a few more minutes.
Yes, everybody almost all right at once at 10 o'clock usually signs on.
Okay. Are we getting any closer?
We are. We're almost there.
Okay. Oh, here's Susanna. Morning, Susanna.
Good morning. Chief Stelnecker, are you on for Chief Frank, or are you on just as law enforcement?
I'm just here for me. I mean, I can cover if need be.
Just checking.
So we will start this meeting just as soon as we're at quorum, and I'm gonna be positive that we are gonna get there.
Yes, and just one more, just one more. They keep popping in, so I have to keep going back through.
Aha.
Oh, there we go. We're at quorum.
All right. Wonderful. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of the Vermont Criminal Justice Council. I'm calling this meeting to order, and our first item on our agenda is any additions or deletions to the agenda. I want to make an addition to the agenda in that I'd like to have us spend a little bit of time introducing ourselves and being introduced to our new member, Dr. Bill Clements. And so I want to make that addition to the agenda. Does anybody have any other alterations to the agenda for us this morning?
I have another one, Karen. If I could make an addition to the agenda, we'd like to have a quick brief from our folks that are here from O2X to give the council a little insight as to what their function is here and what they've seen so far in the 2 days that they've been on site, taking a look at our first new class. So if they could potentially go after your hiring process report, that would be great.
All right. O2X. Got it, Chris. Thank you. Anybody else? All right, seeing no other changes, can we accept the agenda as amended? Do we need a motion to do that, Lindsay? We
Yes,
vote on the
please.
agenda? Okay, so I'd like for somebody to make a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
So moved.
And that needs to be a voting member, if somebody could. Okay, I hear the second. Did I hear the? I can't hear, I think Susanna seconded. I don't know who made the motion.
Tim made the motion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Tim. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed? All right, off we go. We are going to take a look at minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to do introductions first. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Karen Tronsgaard Scott, and I work at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and I'm one of the vice co-chairs of the council, and am facilitating this meeting today in the absence of a fully appointed new chair. So for those of you who don't know, our prior chair, Bill Sorrell, has left the council and left the role as chair, and I'm so pleased that we are able to introduce to you today Dr. Bill Clements. He will be a new member of the council, and we are waiting his final appointment as the new, or maybe we have it. Bill, you can talk about that. We waiting his appointment as our new chair. Now, I've had the pleasure of knowing Bill for 4 days now, and I'm really excited for his leadership on the council. He's jumping right into the deep end of the pool. And so it's a real pleasure for me to be able to introduce Bill to all of you. And so, Bill, I'm going to let you go ahead and offer your bio, whatever you want us to know. Please launch.
Sure. Thank you very much, Karen. And it's a pleasure to be here. Yes, the ink's still a little bit wet on the paperwork. So I've pretty much only been in the seat for a couple of days. And I asked Karen, who graciously agreed to guide the meeting today, having no direct frame of reference and not wanting to jump in midstream. But it's a pleasure to be meeting all of you now, and I'm sure in other ways in the future. I know a number of folks already who were on this call. By way of background, I'm not new to Vermont. I've been here almost 40 years. Recently retired as a criminal justice and criminology professor at Norwich University, but also have worked quite extensively in the criminal justice area, leading the what was the Vermont Center for Justice Research. It's now the Crime Research Group. That was a past part of my work, and some pretty long-standing work in accreditation and educational delivery. And been doing that for many years. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you and getting to learn a little bit more. It'll take a little bit. The deep end of the pool is deep, so I'll have to explore that. But I'm looking forward to visiting the academy and getting out and seeing a number of folks and the important work that this group does. I've been certainly fully aware of the role and the importance of the Criminal Justice Council in the whole landscape of the field. and just looking forward to working with you. I don't want to delay the meeting too much longer, and I'll turn it back to Karen to move us toward the agenda. Thank you, Karen.
Thanks so much, Bill, and welcome. Okay, folks, we have minutes to take a look at. We are going to address minutes from 3 different dates. Let's start first with the minutes from the June 18th meeting. Do we have any changes to those minutes that we need to consider? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the minutes of the June 18th meeting as submitted. Can I have that motion, please?
Jim Whitcomb, motion to submit those minutes.
Thank you so much.
Second.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Mark. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting those minutes as submitted for the June 18th meeting, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Susanna, thank you so much. If you wish to abstain, please just note that in the chat. That's probably the easiest way for us to do that. Great. Next, we have the minutes from June 26th. Any changes to those meeting minutes that are needed? I'd like to entertain a motion then to accept those minutes from the June 26th meeting as submitted.
Jim Whitcomb, so moved.
Thanks, Jim. Do I have a second?
Mark Anderson, second.
Thanks, Mark. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And abstentions in the chat. And finally, we have the minutes from June 16th. Do we have any changes to those meeting minutes? Hearing none, can I have a motion to accept those minutes as submitted?
Again, Jim Whitcomb, so moved.
Thanks, Jim. Do we have a
Just
second,
for
Mark?
fun.
Thank you, Mark. All right, all in favor of accepting those minutes as submitted, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Susanna, those are from July 16th, not June 16th. So your abstention, can you make that amendment in the chat for on your
And-
abstention?
And then I actually was present for that meeting and I'm going to withdraw that abstention. Thank
Oh.
you.
Okay, thanks a lot. All right. The next item on our agenda is an update on our hiring process. So, and I'll provide that update. You will remember that at the July 16th meeting, the council determined that we would offer the permanent position of executive director as an internal posting. And so that posting did go out. We worked with the Department of Human Services to set that posting up, and it has gone out to all the staff at the Police Academy. And that posting is open till August 9th. So that's next Friday. And that's 2 days from now. This Friday, we're looking forward to accepting applications. Those applications are off to DHR, and they will submit those to a committee that was formed under the authority of the previous chair. The previous chair named me as the lead of that committee, and members of the hiring committee are Dominica Padula, Trevor Whipple, Jennifer Frank, Lindsay Taberge, Roger Marcoux, and we also welcome Bill Clemens onto that committee this week. We have developed a work plan that will help us move through a hiring process. We will, once we get applications, we will be examining those applications based on a matrix. We will be then taking some steps to get questions out to the applicants, and then scheduling interviews for the last week of August. We'll conduct 2 sets of interviews with each applicant. One will be using Teams and one will be in person at a location to be determined. It may be at the Police Academy, it may be off-site. We haven't determined that yet. And our goal is to get a recommendation to the council chair and thus to the full council at the very beginning of September for the council's consideration. So that's what's happening right now. I will say that it's a really wonderful group of committee members who have lots of experience in hiring. So it's been very helpful. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? Okay. Well, if you do end up having questions and you want to shoot me an email, please feel free to do that. So the next item on our agenda, Chris, is O2X. We can't hear you. You're muted, Chris.
Sorry about that. I did see, although I don't see him on my screen at the moment, Jason was here on camera, who was going to do the introductions and lead in as to, oh, I see him, he's on page 2. Jason, I'll turn it over to you to discuss your process and what you're seeing so far.
So Jason had to step out to handle a recruit issue, but I can cover down for him.
Perfect.
But I think that is a good kind of segue into why we're here in the first place. So my name's Eamon Burke. I'm with O2X Human Performance. O2X, I'll just go into a little bit of background on kind of who we are, what we do. O2X is a holistic human performance company for tactical populations. So O2X as a whole, we work primarily with police, fire, military units, 3-letter agencies, and kind of everybody in between those kind of subcategories. We provide holistic human performance support around areas of strength and conditioning, nutrition, sleep, stress management, and resilience for post-traumatic stress, with the goal being to mitigate occupational health issues in tactical athletes. We were brought in here, the contract started, I believe, 2 weeks ago, Monday, or week and a half ago, actually now. Really what we're seeing in this group is very consistent with what we're seeing across the entire country. Recruiting is a really tough thing right now in the tactical populations, whether it's police, fire, or military. Because of that, groups are having to kind of open up the population that they accept into these academies, and it becomes increasingly difficult to graduate successful recruits and place them into these agencies as fully capable operators. Some of the things that we're focused on right off the bat are body composition, orthopedic injuries, medical concerns that recruits have showing up to the academy that need to be worked through so that they don't turn into really serious cases, like things like rhabdo or cardiac events and things of that sort. But our goal in this contract is to implement holistic human performance for all of these recruits to graduate them as more successful officers on the other side of it. And it's done kind of in a twofold way. One is through group education and training, so running the physical fitness program, teaching them in a group setting, but also realizing that there are going to be individuals in these classes that need one-on-one training and kind of hand-holding to get to where they need to be to at the end graduate as what we look at as a healthy and successful operator in the field. So some of the things that I have written down here just as kind of our goals of the program, obviously create the successful graduates is number one, reduce the injury costs, eliminate the severe injuries. A lot of these things can happen through overtraining and people hiding some injuries that might turn into very significant things that could impact their ability to be on the job down the road for you. And then eliminate the risk of death or serious medical conditions through things like rhabdo there. Some of the points that I have around kind of how we're doing this. So obviously Jason is there working with the people on a day-to-day basis, but we don't want to look at this as just a staffing contract. Jason is fully equipped with the power of O2X and the company when it comes to virtual resources. So we have a mobile app and tactical athlete portal that all these individuals have access to, which gives them content around all these pillars of performance. So if they want information on nutrition or injury prevention or any of these things, when they're not sitting directly with Jason, they have access to our network of 300 to 400 specialists at O2X that they can reach out to at any time and get information on that can help them become more capable operators and graduate a higher level recruit there. One thing that we're starting to work on right now based off Jason's findings is developing the pre-academy prep plan. So like I mentioned, in a lot of places across the country, the quality of recruit that's showing up to the academy is not the same caliber that it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And so what we need to do is recognize that, and without compromising the standards of the academy, get people to the point where they are able to enter and progress through the academy and leave a successful operator there. We are starting next week. We're going to start running readiness assessments for all these recruits, and that's going to really paint a baseline status of the force report to show kind of where these individuals stack up against national averages in law enforcement in these academies, on a kind of macro level. And we can provide that report to you that's going to give you some really cool data on who you have, what their issues are, what their strong suits are, and how we're going to improve them throughout the academy. But on an individual basis, it's going to give them a report that's very specific to them, that's going to show their individual deficiencies, the things they're doing right, the things they're doing wrong. And it's going to give Jason a ton of information on how to improve each one of these individuals over the course of the academy so that we can make them as successful as they can possibly be. Again, they have access to all the virtual resources. So these are things that if it's not something in Jason's specialty, which is in strength and conditioning and injury prevention, if it's nutrition or if it's mental health or mental performance, any of these things, they have access to all those resources at O2X through our network of specialists, which is going to be really impactful to them. The final thing that I'll touch on is the reporting and the cost savings analysis. That's something we do for each group. So the cost savings analysis is going to take a little bit of digging to figure out what the cost of losing a recruit in the academy is, how much it costs to get somebody from, call it a job fair, to their first day on the academy, and what that costs if you're losing them. So as we're getting more throughput and higher graduation rates, we'll be able to develop what that cost savings looks like for the state. But the reporting will come on, it's a cadence that we really need to determine. At the very least, it's going to be on a quarterly basis to show the status of the program, the improvements that we're making. But probably at multiple points throughout the academy, the readiness assessments are going to show a lot of progress from day one or week one to that kind of midpoint check-in. I know we talk a lot about the 12-week check-in so that we can make sure that we're getting them to where they need to be by that 17-week mark, and then what the final result of that academy is, when everything from graduation rates, injury rates, weight loss, all the kind of key metrics that show successful officers on the street. So that's the bulk of what we're doing there. Obviously, I'm kind of running my mouth a lot here, but mainly wanted to open it up for any questions, concerns, or kind of success metrics that you might think that we're missing, so that we can add those to the list and make sure we're reporting on those for you.
Any questions? Remarks?
Does support continue after the academy? Yes. So Jeff Burnham typed in a question there. Does support continue after the academy? So the answer is yes. So these individuals for a year after the academy are going to have access to the virtual resources and the reach back support to that network of 300 to 400 specialists. And so as they get to the field, a lot of times what happens in a situation like this is different agencies will end up getting those resources for all their officers once they have a number of groups that have gone through and can kind of see the benefit, but they do have access for a full year after the academy.
Great, thank you.
I have a couple questions.
Yep.
Go ahead, Mark.
So you mentioned the pre-certification program. Is that something that you'd be pushing out to the departments ahead of the academy, like the recruiters, to be able to give recruits once they're hired?
Yeah. And so that's not developed yet. I mean, the contract only started 10 days ago or so, but that's something we're taking a look at, kind of what the initial demands of the academy are right now versus the state that individuals are showing up at, and then developing that program, and then we'll be able to pass that out to all the agencies in the state based off those needs.
Okay, and for the diet portion, are you guys working with the food service folks at the academy to change up the menu a bit for what your goals are?
That is the goal, yeah. So we had a meeting with them on day one on the 29th. And for this first class, a lot of what we're doing is just kind of analyzing how everything functions and then making change requests based off of that. So there were a couple things that I saw right off the bat that I think we're going to make some inquiries on the nutritional side there. But and those were all expressed through the TCs and everybody, just kind of the way that the nutrition functions. And so we can start making those requests for the next class that comes through once we kind of get our full report on this one.
Okay, so ice cream Fridays are out. Is that what you're saying?
I would hope so.
All right, thank you.
Mark, I see your hand up.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation. I heard a lot of, I think, the bullet points that would probably hit this, but just because it's a new relationship between O2X and Vermont, one of the issues that law enforcement's been approaching for probably better part of 10 years is around officer wellness, and certainly fitness and nutrition play roles in that. Is there ongoing reinforcement? Sounds like a year after the academy, but building up to wellness concepts, how fitness plays into wellness concepts, nutrition, things of that. Is that a focus?
So the issue with after they're in the academy, they're in the field. So everything we have to do is going to be virtual for them. We do have some workshops built into a separate contract with the academy. So those are things that, due to population sizes and shift schedule, it'd be tough to bring everybody in on those. We can build in some kind of virtual training education courses, and there are a lot of resources that O2X can offer without going through a full workshop. So in that first year, if they want to reach out to a nutritionist or a mental performance coach or a resiliency grief counselor, if something happens mentally or mental performance wise, they have access to that. But a lot of it has to be proactive on the side of the officer to go after that, because we don't really have full access to them once they're back at their agencies and in the field. And the other side of it is the contract is really with the state and the academy. So once they're back to being a member of an individual agency, it becomes a lot tougher for us to reach them. Having said that, if there are agencies that want to partner with O2X, that's very possible too. And it's most of it will be kind of beneficial on the virtual side, but those are some different things we can discuss as well.
And is this limited only to the level 3 basic? Is it available to, is that the scope of this contract?
Yeah.
See Chris saying yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
I see we have a question in the chat from Lori Vadigan.
Let's see.
Can you see that, Jason? Or
1 second. So teaching emotional regulation skills fall under mental health support. Yes. So that's something that I would say we kind of consider that mental performance. So we have mental performance coaches on site that they're not on site, excuse me, virtually, that are CMPCs. So they teach everything from mindfulness, meditation, self-regulation techniques. Those are things that don't fall kind of specific under Jason's specialty, but they are for sure taught in those workshops that were coming up. I believe twice a year that we're doing
About twice, yeah.
Yeah, twice a year on those workshops.
thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Other questions? Chris, is there anything you want to add to this presentation?
Just the fact that I think, having folks on site that actually see the PT that the folks are doing and can mitigate some of the injuries that they either complain about or define what is an overuse injury as opposed to an actual injury that a recruit might face. I also think that very often in the beginning, you'll find recruits that start to report things that oddly enough were not in their medical packet or were not brought up or happened just before they got here. That we may not know about and are either exacerbated by the initial PT that they start doing, or it's something that just never got mentioned in their medical packet. Now they're deciding to let us know about it in the very early stages. So it's great that that happens early on and that we have somebody on site to figure out what is an alternative to what that person can do if we're showing an injury. For instance, somebody rolls an ankle and they can't do running. Can we put them on the bike? Can we do other things to keep them actively engaged in the PT program? And so that's been very helpful. And it also helps us here, staff-wise, take a little bit of a different look at what the PT program has been historically. And while everyone tries to get to the same benchmark, it just doesn't happen anymore. Recruits are different. That's just a way of life. Recruits are different today than they were, even 10 years ago. So we have to work within the population that we have. The end goal is we want to make sure that somebody is healthy and successful and can do the physical requirements that are required of the profession that they have to do once they graduate. So it's been a pleasure so far working with them. I think our staff learns a lot from seeing the work that's done, and the recruits are benefiting from it as well.
Excellent. Okay, are there any final questions or comments? Go ahead, Chief Foley.
Good morning, thank you. As we get through this class, are we gonna look at our entrance standards now and maybe have some sort of like a handout, so when people come in to, recruit, we want to have something to explain what the academy is going to be about, what needs, because we're talking about the standards right now. We're not getting the up and coming stars now that we used to get, and our market is very limited. But are we going to be able to spell this out? Like, I know we changed the academy entrance to the run and the row, but do we need to spell something out to them when somebody comes to our agency to apply to go to the academy and become an officer, what we anticipate, what we expect from them during the process?
Yeah, absolutely. And that'll all be outlined in that. So right now we're building that pre-academy prep plan based off what we're seeing from this group and kind of the status that they show up in. So that'll have, when we have that fully developed, it'll have the entrance standard and it'll have a pretty long prep plan to get people where they need to be and to be not just really meeting the standards for when they get here, because you want them exceeding it so that they're not pushing as hard as they can just to meet the bare minimum, because that's a lot of times that's where you see a lot of the injuries that happen when they first get here, is somebody that might have to go as hard as they possibly can just to meet the bare minimum standards. So our pre-academy prep plan is going to be fully designed to have people exceeding the standard for when they get here, recognizing not everybody will, but it'll be outlined in a very specific manner with a lot of lead time and kind of prep time built into that plan.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Chief, just as a quick follow-up to that as well, part of our contract with O2X has been specifically to help design this so that we're giving you, the agency, something to look forward to get your recruit ready before they get here. And we understand that, again, this isn't something that's mandated. It's something that you can offer to a recruit. It might be something that you're going to have to figure out how to implement, since some agencies don't actually employ their recruit until the day of the academy. So this is all going to be, a matrix of how you best prepare your recruit coming in here. We're going to give you the tools to try to get them there, but that's going to be up to that recruit and the agency that's sending them to us to really work through that so that they can be successful when they get here.
Thank you.
I'd like to ask two questions, and pardon me if you covered this and I missed it. My first question is, are we looking at an outcome measurement that has to do with the number of recruits we lose to injury in each class? I assume that we would be able to see a drop in those numbers. And my
Yes.
second, thank you. My second question is for Chris. When should the council expect to be updated on this process?
Sorry about that. On the process for the pre-academy prep, that will really be determined based on what O2X sees as they move through this, as they check the dietary needs that folks need to have before they get here. And part of that will be the component of the makeup of the employee that the agency is about to hire and send to us. My guess is that this will probably take a good portion of this academy class going through so that they can see what the metrics are with each recruit as they move through and then try to develop what that plan is. We'll definitely get it out before the next academy class comes through so people that can get ready, but that will also be out statewide so that agencies will be able to use that as a prep plan regardless of when they hire somebody next or when they send somebody to the academy.
Thank you. Any other questions? Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. This is invaluable information, and I'm really excited. I can't wait to see what you find out, and looking forward to learning more about how we use this information to improve our system.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Yeah, we're really grateful for the chance to start this work, and we're really excited to start running some of these reports. Really, at the end of this first class, I think we'll have some substantial data, everything from kind of state of the group coming in to how implementing something like this has changed and increased the graduation rates, not just the throughput, but the overall quality of the individual graduating. So we're really excited for this.
Great. Thanks so much. We
Thank
look
you
forward to
very much.
hearing from you soon.
All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Well, Chris, this brings us to the executive director updates.
Okay, let's start with my updates. We'll start with Act 56. So the Act 56 work group met yesterday, started to begin their discussions of the finalization of the code of conduct. And the discussion centered really around initially the language for an email to go out to all of law enforcement to really provide more clarity around what the code of conduct is and to provide an opportunity for feedback from the subcommittee for them to be able to look at what the final version of the code of conduct for the council will be for approval. There was an ask by law enforcement for clarity, as well as from the professional regulations subcommittee around category B offenses. And part of that was derived from the fact that not all agencies have uniform policies, right? So we saw some folks that were being held accountable for policies in some agencies, while the same behavior might have been seen in another agency, but that agency didn't have a policy that took care of that one issue that they were facing. So this code of conduct really developed out of the need for what we saw of disparate outcomes between category B offenses, and to make it clear to all law enforcement, what is the standard? What should you expect from an employee that's in law enforcement to be able to hold them accountable to a code of conduct? This is not something that is meant to be punitive in any measure. It's a standard by which Vermont expects their law enforcement officers to be handling themselves. So what this code of conduct will do is put all agencies and officers on the same page about what type of conduct is and what is not acceptable. This original work group that was put together by the council to form this code of conduct consisted of Jen Frank, who was the representative for VACOP, Aaron Jacobson, formerly of the AG's office, Mike O'Neill from the Troopers Association, Lieutenant Wickham from VSP, Tucker Jones, the general counsel for DPS, Mark Anderson, who was the sheriff's rep, former member Chris Loris, who was a governor-appointed seat. Karen, you were on this group as well, representing the Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. Commissioner Morrison from DPS, Trevor Whipple from VLCT, and both Kim and I. This new work group, because of a couple of shifts in change, we do not have a member from the AG's office since Aaron Jacobson has left. And Tiffany North Reed, excuse me, has joined us from the Office of Racial Equity, replacing Chris Loris's seat. So I think what law enforcement can expect is there will be an email coming out explaining the work of the group, and it will offer an opportunity for all of law enforcement to join us in this work group for an hour-long Q&A. We'll do a Teams meeting for law enforcement to ask questions around everything that's going on with the code of conduct and how it would be implemented, what it would look like. And then the discussion of the group went from the formulation of the code of conduct to rules. And what this work group is required to do is develop language for rules that will put the code of conduct into place. The rules committee is set and they're poised. They've set up some meeting dates ahead of time to be ready to take whatever the work group presents to them for work on the code of conduct, and then create rules around 3 specific things. One is the content. So the content of the code of conduct has to be put into rules. The implementation of the code of conduct, which is set to begin by statute on January 1st, 2025, and then how that code of conduct can be modified in rules. So how often that can be modified, and that any modification of the code of conduct would require a 2/3 vote of the council for that to happen. So that should be information coming out to law enforcement soon, that you will all have an opportunity to jump on a meeting, ask direct questions of the committee, and ask us anything that you might have concerns about, if there is a concern. Just because I'm hearing a voice, if somebody has a question, speak up, but otherwise you might just want to mute your mic. Thanks. Okay, on to the level 2 liability work group. That is in the process of currently being formed. That work group is going to work towards discussing the liability that we face in level 2 training right now. And so they're going to look at the prior findings of the TAC committee that reported out to the council on some of the concerns in level 2 training. The liability that is potentially exposed to agencies by the limited training that officers get within level 2. They're going to be looking at the limited response that they got within the JTA that was done by IALIS regarding level 2, and how the JTA relates to level 3, whether level 2 could actually be a framework or a beginning for an alternative path, or does that create something that we have now a level 1 training because there is a need for that. This work group is going to study all of those options and then provide a report out to the council. And I'm thinking that this will be something that we have set up a tentative first meeting for August 12th. They will set the schedule, elect a chair and a vice chair. And my guess is that this is probably going to be at least a 3-month process if there is a meeting every other week. So far, right now, we have members joining this group will be Commissioner Morrison, Sheriff Mark Anderson, Domenica Padula, Loretta Stalnaker, Chief Covey, Trevor Whipple from VLCT, Chief Cambridge from Heinsberg, Rob Schell, who handles work for the judiciary, and then Kim and I will also be on that work group as well. So again, our initial meeting is for August 12th. We'll set some meeting dates and deliverables that we'll be looking for, and then have a chair and vice chair voted in on that day. Any questions on the level 2 liability work group? Okay. The level 3 curriculum review committee. I don't want to get into too much detail about that, only because that work group is being handled by our contractor, Kevin Lane, who is managing that work group. I do know that there is a meeting already scheduled for September 11th and 12th. at Middlebury PD to start off their initial meeting dates. The location of that is because of the fact that we have a large class here ongoing that is now on day 3. And so there's going to be more details to come on that. Tentatively, I know that there are 11 members already committed to that group, with 2 more tentative members potentially coming on. But because they have not accepted yet, and Kevin is out of the country until tomorrow, I don't want to give any further information on that work group. But if there are specific questions to that, you can either direct them through me or reach out directly to Kevin Lane, who's the program manager for IATLAS project, and he's going to be handling that work group. Any questions on that piece? Okay. Moving on to positions, just want to kind of update everybody on where we are at here with positions. We have currently 4 positions that are out open, looking for great applicants to be applying for these positions. Our community inclusion director, that position closes today. We do have a good pool of candidates that I've seen on there already. We have 8 candidates that have applied for that position. As soon as that closes today, we will then review those applications and set up an interview schedule. There's been a matrix that's already been designed with the help of Tabitha Moore, and we will set up the panel to begin those first round of interviews. We also have a fair and impartial policing trainer position. The community inclusion director and the FIP trainer were both provided funding by the legislature, understanding that this was an ask by the council of positions that were needed. That position is set to close on August 8th. To date, as I checked this morning, there were no applicants for that position. If we don't get applicants for that position, we will reevaluate that job description, the application process, and repost that as needed. We did get feedback on the application and the job description, both from Tabitha Moore, who's contracting with us, and from the FIP subcommittee. So we've been reaching out to make sure that we're touching all the points that we need to touch and incorporating as many folks as we can and hitting as many locations as we can to advertise these positions. So we may have to do some reevaluation with that if we don't get applicants. Then again, sometimes people wait till the last day to apply. So we'll know a little bit more about that position tomorrow. Our law enforcement training coordinator position for in-service training. This is a position that hasn't been filled for some time. That position did close. The advertisement closed on July 24th. We have 3 qualified applicants for that position. Those applications have been reviewed. First round of interviews have already taken place. We're trying to figure out in-house when we can schedule the second round of interviews to take place, given everything that's ongoing, but we will get those scheduled as soon as possible. And then lastly, the Vermont Criminal Justice Council investigator position that we have. This was a position that was created some time ago specifically for professional regulation. We currently have a contracted position that we've been utilizing to investigate Category C complaints, which are complaints that involve agency heads or council processes. So we've been contracting with an investigator to do that. We are going to fill this position. That position closes on August 12th. And so far, I noticed that there were 4 applicants in that job position right now. And then on to August hearing date. We did have a scheduled hearing date for August where we thought that there would be an agreement. That agreement likely will take place, and it's going to take a little bit longer. That will likely be ready for September. So we can actually release the August hearing date, which was scheduled for August 20th. Sorry, I had to look at my calendar. So unless there is other council business to attend to on August 20th, or if our new chair would like to keep that date intact so that we could get either some new business done or some new issues or concerns that the new chair may want to bring to the council. We can also keep that date of August 20th. So you can think about that for a couple minutes, unless anybody has questions or an idea of what they'd like to do with that already. And I'm not looking for an answer from you, Dr. Clemens, just if you had some thoughts and wanted to inject them here, please feel free.
I think that I don't know enough of the terrain yet, so my inclination would be to keep the date on the calendar, but we could communicate shortly about whether that's something that could be postponed or canceled.
Sounds good. Everybody has it as a calendar hold date. So if we can just hold that, and you'll be hearing from us shortly about whether to release that or what other business we might tend to for that date. So that brings me to the A-RIDE discussion and recommendation. So A-RIDE, which for most people that do know, we've had this discussion several times, but for those that don't, A-RIDE is the Advanced Roadside Impaired Driving Enforcement Training. There was a recommendation back in March that was provided by John Flanagan, who we contract with to run the DRE program. The A-RIDE training consists of a 16-hour course designed for folks that have already completed DUI training and SFST training, which is standard field sobriety testing, and have had a couple of years of experience working the road and processing DUIs so that they recognize what those signs are before they actually get A-RIDE training. Back, just for a little history, back in March of 2015, the council approved A-RIDE training for all level 3 officers within 3 years of the date of their graduation. And then once the marijuana legalization bill came through, the language changed, and then it required all law enforcement officers to receive A-RIDE training within 3 years. And that was problematic for a number of reasons. Some law enforcement officers don't have DUI training, and they're not required to. So it put an onus for them to have training that didn't have any precursors for them to understand why they were even having to take that training. And then in addition to that, A-RIDE training can only be taught by a certified DRE, drug recognition expert. And there was not a pool large enough to actually fulfill that legislative mandate. So we went back to the legislature. We were provided the opportunity to put an A-RIDE recommendation into council rules so that it gets out of law and it's not mandated anymore. So we are at that point now. The recommendation that was provided that came from John Flanagan, who manages the DRE program, was for level 3, 2, and 1 officers that are engaged in a highway safety enforcement, that they shall complete A-RIDE training within 3 years of certification or as soon as is practical. And the council was briefed on that recommendation back at our June 26th meeting. We opened that up for discussion. How does that play out practically? That discussion took place within the chiefs and sheriffs. And my understanding was both chiefs and sheriffs have had meetings and made recommendations that the council should have a copy of. And the new recommendation coming forward from both chiefs and sheriffs was that anybody that has completed DUI or SFST training shall complete A-RIDE within 3 years of completion. And also that a person who no longer engages in traffic enforcement can obtain a waiver exempting the completion of A-RIDE training. So that is the recommendation from the chiefs and sheriffs. I'd like to open that up to either a little more discussion if there are more discussion points on that. And if not, if there is somebody that would like to make a motion for the council to consider what we would consider for a rule recommendation. Karen, you're muted.
Mark Anderson, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris. I'd like to make a motion uh, for the opportunity to have discussion. That we as a council adopt the chiefs and sheriffs recommend, and I'd like to speak to my motion if seconded.
Mark, could you please repeat that motion for me so I can make sure I have the language?
I'd like to make a motion that we adopt the chiefs and sheriffs recommendation for rules.
For recommendation for rules on A-RIDE.
Correct.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt the chiefs and sheriffs recommendations for rules on A-RIDE. Do we have a second?
Also,
After we have the second, we discuss. So we have a second from Tom. Thanks, Tom. Okay, the floor is open for discussion.
Can I speak to my motion, Karen?
Sure. Can you,
Thank
Mark?
you.
You're the expert here on Robert's rules, so you tell me.
If acknowledged and given the floor. Thank you. So just as a bit of a background, I'm a former drug recognition expert. I spent about 8 years doing that, worked closely with John Flanagan. And I believe that the chiefs and sheriffs recommend honors the intent of what John was attempting to approach, as well as the intent of the legislature who was trying to ensure that the roadways were safe when marijuana was legalized or decriminalized in the state of Vermont. The only concern I have with the language that John provides is there's almost a conflict. It's a strong recommendation followed by a must, which felt a little bit odd to some people. And so the chiefs, sheriffs worked together to come up with language that's been endorsed by both associations, which again honors the intent of what John's saying is people who are doing primarily doing traffic enforcement would then complete this advanced level of training once they have sufficient experience. It also acknowledges that myself, as an example, I have a higher level of training as a drug recognition expert. I wouldn't necessarily, there's a scenario where I've never had A-RIDE training, but it is encapsulated into the DRE training. And so under John's recommendation, people such as myself who preceded the A-RIDE program in Vermont, we would then have to go back to an intermediary level of training to do that. The second part is that my general obligations in my role, and this is the purpose for the waiver, do not require me to do impaired driving training. It doesn't mean I can't recognize it and I can't act upon it, but as a general matter of practice, I don't go out on impaired driving enforcement details. My staff does. So in cases such as agency heads who are coming in and serve more in an administrative role, a court officer who's not engaged in traffic enforcement, we'd like to be able to have an opportunity to say we don't need to commit funding resources, time resources, and seats to people who generally aren't going to do this work, and we can avail it to the people who are doing it. It would not limit the ability for a person who has not had A-RIDE training to perform impaired driving stop. We would very likely, and this has been my practice, find someone who can help us with that, who does have the higher levels of training. But what this does is honor the premise of recognizing we don't need to commit limited resources to train people who aren't engaged in the work, and we want to commit the resources to the people who are engaging in the work. So in summary, better resource allocation while honoring the intent of everyone. Again, the chiefs and sheriffs did endorse this. This has been gone through with John Flanagan as well, and he offered some corrections to our initial recommend, which we have incorporated in the draft in the endorsed letter that is part of the attachments today. So that is why I'm submitting this. We worked on it for about 4 months, I think, from when John initially recommended it, and I think that everyone generally supports the approach.
Thank you, Mark. The waivers issued by the Academy?
In form and function, that would be the intent, yes.
Okay.
The waiver committee from the council would be the ones to address this.
Okay, thank you. Other questions or discussion? All right.
Hearing
we have
no
a-
one, I have just one question, and it's probably for
Go ahead.
Chris. Does this need to go to the Rules Committee?
Yes, it does.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt the recommendations of the chiefs and sheriffs on rules for A-RIDE. We have a second. I'm ready to call the vote. There's no other discussion. So all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Scott's a late entry with a hand up. I'm gonna call on him and let him ask his question. Go ahead, Scott.
Oh, no, I was in favor of it.
Oh, you're voting. Okay,
Yep.
excellent. Okay, sorry about that. For the sake
Okay.
of, sorry about interrupting the vote. So if you are in favor of the motion to adopt the chiefs and sheriffs recommendations on rules for A-RIDE, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye. Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed? All right, the motion carries. According to our agenda, now is the time for general discussion, and I want to open up this general discussion by giving my heartfelt thanks to the staff and faculty at the Academy. Chris, I can't imagine the fire hose that you are drinking from right now, doing 2 full-time jobs in your role as our acting executive director. But I'm so heartened and grateful to everybody at the Academy for just keeping things rolling. It's an incredible amount of work that you all do in circumstances that are not quite so volatile. And so I just want to offer my deep appreciation and thanks to everybody at the Academy.
Well, you are more than welcome, but also let me just bring up 2 things. One, this place, I know you've heard it 100 times, if not more than that. This place works because of the team that is here and not any one individual. Everyone does more than their share here on a daily basis and have been doing that for the 2.5 years that I've been here. So this is ongoing work that we're kind of used to, but getting some new positions filled would certainly help ease that burden a little bit. And knowing that the support is there from the council is also very helpful as well, since this is the oversight body that, you know, oversees us and the work that we do here. Just as a quick update, we have currently 53 recruits, down from the initial bigger number. We lost 1 recruit on day 1 and 1 that had to withdraw prior to day 1 due to an injury sustained offsite. That person will be deferred to the next class. So we're down to 53. When I say down, that doesn't mean that's made it a lot easier, because that's a lot of people to move in a short amount of time. And especially in these early stages when they're not familiar with moving from class to class, the things that they need to know. Sometimes it's a little bit amusing, but more often than that, it's very educational for folks that are here, which brings me back to my point. I will raise yet one more time. And again, I only do this because I think it's really important that if you have free time on August 13th, and again, I just picked this date because it would give this class a week to get kind of situated, and then let folks from the council come and take a visit on the date of August 13th. Anybody from the council is welcome here any day. A heads up would be nice so that we can make sure that somebody has time to take you around, show you where you need to be. But I've mentioned this date a couple of times, and I've only heard from 1 council member who can't make it, unfortunately, due to the circumstances. But I think it's very important that members of this body that oversee the work that's done here come here to see what's done here. And this is the best time during a full-time class, so you can see how busy it actually is. But the type of work that goes into running a full-time class, when we talk about residential versus alternative paths, come and see the rooms that they stay in, know the conditions of what it is that they're living in, so that you can get an idea of the structure and what they go through. Again, you play an important role, all of the members of this council, in deciding what our future is here, and how we roll out training for law enforcement officers in the state of Vermont. but it's hard to do that if you don't understand it or if you're not part of law enforcement. And I want to be very cognizant of the fact that there are a lot of folks that aren't and don't know it. And it's through no fault of their own. They just have never been exposed to it until perhaps now being a council member. So we want to make sure that that invitation is open, that it is always open. And if it's not on the 13th, a day ahead of time would be great to know. But we'll certainly make it August 13th. If anybody can come down, either reach out to me or Lindsay, just let us know. And we're open all day and pretty much into the night. So you let us know what time works for you. Thanks.
Thanks so much, Chris. Thanks for that warm invitation. And I just want to second, I've had the real privilege of visiting the Academy several times over the course of my time at the Vermont Network. And I've always been incredibly impressed with the work that's happening there and really appreciate the opportunity to visit at any time. I encourage council members, especially council members from the community, to make sure that you find a moment to go down to Pittsfield. It's well worth it. Bill, I see your hand up.
Yes, I was just offering support for Chris's plea, and I think that all members at some point should have a visit there, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that in the future. But it's really important to be connected to what's happening there and the staff at the Academy, especially for those that aren't in law enforcement, and as Chris pointed out, would have a more ongoing contact with the Academy. But just throwing my support behind Chris's comments and hope that folks can get there, whether it's the 13th or any other time. I'm sure, as Chris mentioned, they'd be welcome to stop by. So thanks for bringing it up, Chris.
Bill,
Okay,
while you have the floor, I was actually thinking I would give you an opportunity to make some final comments, if you will, and look forward to handing the facilitation of this meeting over to you in the very near future.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. And again, it was only a few days. I thought it best that Karen guide through, having never attended a council meeting before, to see what this was like. So I'm more than happy to step in the future and work with you all. And no, it's I'm drinking from a fire hose right now, and so I'm learning as much detail that I can about the various activities and committees and things that are happening. But in coming weeks and in coming meetings, you'll learn a little bit more about me, and I think some direction. And I'm really interested again in working with all of you and the good work that you're doing, and a lot of work that you're doing. And looking forward to more meetings. That sounds kind of odd, looking forward to more meetings, but you'll probably be seeing me popping up in a lot of different places over the next few months.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bill. Is there any other discussion item, anything else we should be thinking about for the good of the Academy? Well, I think nobody will be disappointed to have an hour back in your schedule, so I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mark. Do we have a second?
Birdie Shaw seconds.
Thank you very much. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, folks, thank you so much. Have a great day. Really appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you,
Take care.
everyone.